oh no, you made the product too good. We have to destroy it because you made it too enjoyable for people. There's no such thing as being addicted to consuming media and communicating with people. You know, you can tweet from your vape now. I'm not kidding you.
On this show, I've sat down with Peter Thiel's Fixer, gotten in a yelling match with Keith Ravoy, and had AI's #1 hater Ed Zitron on twice. But no guest seems to cause a bigger stir online than the one I have today. Taylor Lorenz has covered internet culture for the New York Times, The Atlantic, and The Washington Post. She wrote the book on creators, Extremely Online. Then she left legacy media and went independent with User Mag. Nobody covers the internet like Taylor, and nobody gets attacked by it quite like her either. Taylor Lorenz, welcome to the Newcomer podcast. I'm Eric Newcomer. Subscribe to the Newcomer Substack at newcomer.co. I wanted to start off, though, really on your, core ethos of the moment, which is maybe being one of the last people in the world who wants to defend an anonymous internet. It feels like a lot of people have just sort of forgotten about it, or, we want to protect children to such a degree that we're willing to give up anonymity on the internet.
Which endangers children, by the way. But yeah.
Yeah, so is this a lost cause? Are you fighting a fight that's already over?
Oh, God. I know. Is all of my coverage worthless? Potentially. I don't think it's over. I think that these court battles are happening right now. And these laws are being written right now.
These are state laws. Right now, basically, a bunch of states are...
We have, exactly. There's over 25 states that have age verification laws on the books. The App Store Accountability Act was just upheld in Texas. I mean, this is a very active fight. And I will tell you, who definitely cares is the tech companies who are lobbying on all different sides. Is this going to be done at the device level? Is this going to be done on the app level? Like, what is it? What is this going to look like? I do think that the culture, the broader culture has gotten on board with this campaign, but I think we're going to start seeing backlash because I've been reporting a lot about what's going on in the UK. The UK has been a little bit ahead of us in terms of passing these types of laws, and people are irate, and or look at the complete failure of the social media ban in Australia. I think people are starting to see through the grift a little bit and starting to recognize, number one, none of this is about protecting children, and number two,
do you think that's true?
Yeah, I mean, I've been covering this movement for a decade. I think that there are some well-intentioned people who falsely believe that this is going to protect children somehow. What I would say to them is, in what way does mass surveillance sort of protect? Show me an example of any of these policies that has protected children.
This is a tangent, but I think you'll understand.
Yeah.
Do you sleep with your phone in your bedroom?
Sometimes, yeah.
You agree that there's some toxic aura to having the phone with you all the time?
Well, I think you should take a break if you need to take a break. I think everybody has a different relationship to their phone. For instance, I have no notifications.
But as a full-grown adult,
yeah.
I mean, I've started at the advice of an executive coach, sleeping with my phone outside of my bedroom.
Yeah.
Just because even me, sort of a 36-year-old grown human with a daughter now, I can't overcome the addiction that is a phone. And so obviously, I just don't think my young child is going to be able to overcome
Now,
that.
Is that a problem that the government should solve?
Well,
what I would ask.
Yeah, right.
So
that's why I just want to start with just your own sort of sense that the phone is... There's a danger there that people are worried about legitimately.
I don't think it's just the phone. I think people... you're seeing this across the spectrum. You're seeing people really resentful of... the influence that they feel technology has on their life. And, they learn about sort of interaction design, right? And they hear, or, people design these products for them to be used. How terrible. Let's prosecute them, and
But there are some bad things. It's funny.
Sure.
Are we going to get into the public? Because, I hate red badges, right?
Yeah.
Do you not hate red badges?
What do you mean by red badges?
Just the buttons, when Substack, as they've become more of a social media platform, I'll go onto Substack to publish my newsletter where I think and write deeply.
Yeah.
And then I'll have, weird people who wrote me direct messages and I need to navigate to some part of the app to clear out, the red circle.
The notification. The notification button. Totally.
That
and I would
psychologically burdensome to have there.
Here's the thing, Eric. You can turn notifications off. You can turn notifications off.
They make it hard. You have to bury.
Well, right. And I think we can encourage these platforms to make it easier. I'm all for more user controls. I think it's great to give users options. I think it's great. I think, it's a little bit difficult because a lot of people, as any designer knows, a lot of people express that they want and then sort of what they actually want, or, their sort of revealed preferences are quite different sometimes. But to get back to sort of the anonymity thing, I think that we just need to think about what internet we want to build and what internet facilitates innovation, and how can we kind of encourage people to build positive technology, while also cracking down on bad actors. I'm not saying everyone should fire their trust and safety team, right? That's crazy. But I think when we look at these laws and what these laws do, they're not protecting children. Forcing children to upload their biometric data and encouraging kids to put more information about themselves out on the internet, which is what these laws incentivize. They're not even enforcing COPPA in many cases now in order to protect children by having them upload their ID. It's ridiculous.
I agree with you to the extent that the argument that like we're accidentally giving up anonymity on the internet as adults with this obsession about children.
Speech, yeah.
Yeah, that worries me. I think it's become such a bedrock of the internet that you should be able to operate on it without the government or companies knowing who you are, and to give that up for children. I agree with you there. I start to disagree with you when you say there's really no sincere interest in protecting children.
Well, no. I wouldn't say that. Of course there's sincere interest. I don't think the people with the sincere interests are the ones leading this political movement and writing these laws.
Who are they?
And let me tell you why. They're groups like Morality in Media, which has renamed themselves NCOSE, National Center on Sexual Exploitation. This is an anti-LGBTQ hate group that, was lobbying anti-LGBTQ laws in Africa, has been responsible for horrible things, that constantly pushes out moral panic, slop, this is a very irresponsible group that I would argue does not care about the children. The Heritage Foundation, the Heritage Foundation has been, a huge proponent of these policies. I would argue the Heritage Foundation does not care very much about children. A lot of states that are passing these laws, take a look at some of their child labor. These are the states that are allowing kids to work in meat factories or, in sort of dangerous environments. I just think that it's a bit disingenuous. And I also think what we need to talk about is protect children from what, right? If it's protecting them from news and information, I don't think children should be protected from that. I think children also have a right to speech, to expression, and to receive information and knowledge. I also think it's really important to build media literacy skills. And you cannot do that when you cut kids off from the internet until they turn 18, which is the ultimate goal of this political project. And then throw them out into the wild. Also, if there are online harms, we should address those for adults as well as children. Why does the internet suddenly stop being dangerous or whatever when you turn 18? What about the 65-year-olds that are getting scammed or taken advantage of, right?
Just, cigarettes. There are lots of things
There's
where
nothing,
as a
cigarettes
culture...
are not speech. Let's compare. Let's talk. If you want to talk about...
I'm just saying it's not new that we would create a dividing line between children and adults in terms of our expectations of how prepared they are to make serious decisions. But
let's talk about speech and media law, because it's very easy for people to compare technological, sort of media products, social media products to illicit substances. What I would say is compare it to any other form of speech or any other sort of media product, and tell me how what sort of regulatory scheme you would like, because I think what's really scary is for people to make these comparisons between illicit substances and then imply that we should take that regulatory scheme that restricts illicit substances and apply that to the internet and to speech. So I think I just think it's a slippery slope, and that there's a lot of unintended consequences, and a lot of people advocating for these laws don't care about those.
Yeah, I mean, I generally agree with you. I guess, one of my issues with social media right now, besides the sort of notifications, the psychological manipulation, is just, the degradation of Twitter, right? You go into some reply and, literally you'll see white supremacists. And I don't know that I think the government should solve this necessarily, but what I want is just a forum for the national discourse where reputations actually matter. I don't know that I'm cheering, I guess, putting aside regulation, whether I'm cheering for anonymity as the main way that we interact with each other. Building reputations that are earned, I guess, whether real identities
you can have an anonymous reputation. That doesn't mean you have to have your legal name. And also, we know that removing anonymity actually censors speech, and it doesn't make the online world safer or less harmful or less full of trolls. So I hear you.
And why?
Why doesn't it? Because, fundamentally, you're removing the most marginalized voices. So you're removing people that are, immigrants, trans, whatever. And what I would tell people that ask sort of, well, what do you mean? Go look at the comments on Facebook. Go look at the average comment section on Facebook. No, people post crazy things under their government name, unfortunately. You're not going to solve this problem of sort of negativity on the internet by making everyone have to upload their government ID to post and use their real name. That does not incentivize better behavior. In fact, it's just more surveillance. And
I'd like to see the research.
Go for
just
it.
having
Look at Wired has written a great piece. There's tons of, but you can have a reputation. You build social currency, and you can build a reputation now without inputting your government data and your biometric. You're uploading your government. Oh my God, uploading your government ID and biometric data. And I think what you're asking for, it sounds like, is a nicer online experience where maybe you don't encounter ideas that you consider repulsive, which I totally understand.
Well, not encountering. It's sort of a waste of my time. If someone has staked out a position that I find so abhorrent or so incorrect, or like say they support January 6th or they think the election was stolen, I think there's something valuable to being able to write that person off and write off those views. Like, it is a waste of time
for you
as an experience trying to navigate an information ecosystem.
So I think,
to be sort of burdened by sort of people with views that you're like, these should be outside of the my window of acceptable views.
I think right, and I think everyone has a different window of acceptable views, and I think that if you want to have a better experience, I'm all for, again, giving users the option to curate their own experience, making algorithms more tailored towards users' interests, which is ironically what they're being villainized for, let's not forget. Because if you listen to the critics here, they would say what I'm suggesting is bad and evil and going to make you more addicted, Eric, because you're going to be so addicted because you're only going to see stuff you like. So I think, again, shows why those arguments are silly. But, I love what Twitter did in terms of restricting replies, allowing you to turn off your replies, making your replies sort of limited to mutuals only. I use that tool a lot. I also think it's great to have competitive products. So I wish that we had more spaces online.
Capitalism.
Where people, seriously, right? More innovation, more startups, more people creating online experiences and worlds where, okay, I don't like the user experience on this app. There's other options for me to, go towards.
One thing I've been obsessed with on this channel is sort of the negative sentiment towards AI and technology. I cover startups and venture capital often from the point of view of startup founders. So they're underdogs, but they're leading businesses. I would never claim to be sort of connected, I guess, to the average YouTube consumer. You're sort of more in touch with them. I mean, you came up as someone excited about sort of consumer products. Here you're arguing for anonymity on the internet, which in some ways is sort of holding on to the core identity of what made the internet great. What do you make of sort of this negative turn against the internet and technology from, I guess, people that are often hyper users of these products themselves?
I know, these people are more online. You'll hear from them first in the replies, always, which I think is hilarious.
They're like, please, government, stop me from this addiction. I mean, literally, in some cases, it is sort of a case for this is an addictive technology that they hate it so much, yet use it constantly.
They don't hate it. They don't hate it. This is the thing. They use these products constantly. One, because I would argue these products have captured an enormous amount of the market share, and they want to engage in discourse. And so if they want to engage in this sort of public discourse, they are going to be on these products. And I think they recognize that value. I guess the addiction thing, I just want to say, side note, I think is very silly. Again, there's no such thing as being addicted to consuming media and communicating with people. Now, can you have maladaptive behaviors? Can you have compulsions? Can you use these products in an unhealthy way? Absolutely. But I'm just telling you, as somebody that covered the social media addiction trial, I mean, this is just ridiculous. Like, and also they're trying to make all these product liability cases like, oh no, you made the product too good. We have to destroy it because you made it too enjoyable for people. And it is, I think, in classic moral panic territory. I think we should empower users, allow people to have a better relationship with their phones, with the internet. The more that you believe that you're addicted, there's that great study out of Cal State that Ian Anderson published last year showing the more you believe that you're addicted, Eric, the harder it is for you to moderate your own use. So I would encourage people to stop with that narrative. It is
because basically they've lost control. It's like, whatever. It makes it harder for you to feel empowered to change your habits, which I think is great. You putting your phone in the bedroom, the other, whatever. I also think that a lot of this panic over screen time specifically is just silly. Like, the form factor of the screen where we have this slab in our pocket, I don't think is even going to be a thing in 10 years. So I think
just chill out about
Well,
it.
we almost need to figure it out before it's hardwired into our brain. Or
Well,
you're talking about glasses, or you're
glasses,
talking about
Neuralink, wearables. I mean, already, like, they're trying to do these phone bans in school, which I'm for, as long as, again, it's not a government thing. It's more of the school's decision instead of the
You are for schools having the choice.
Schools should be able to do whatever they
Interesting.
want.
Okay, I was
what I
worried
have a
you
problem
weren't.
is like
Okay.
cops doing, shakedowns on kids or trying to arrest, it's more the civil liberties aspect that I have an issue with. But, it's so funny. I talk to parents and educators, and it's like, you can tweet from your vape now. I'm not kidding you.
Wow, I'm out of touch.
And go
That's
on
fascinating.
WhatsApp on the vape. So it's and we've got smart fridges and everything's internet. So I think this is a losing battle. I think that we all need to build a healthy relationship to technology while also recognizing that, like, waging war on a screen specifically is short-sighted. Let's talk about the broader, what relationship do we want to have with technology in our lives?
But returning to sort of the anger
Which
about
is what I think is
technology,
driving a lot of this, because I think too many people feel like it's too ever-present in their lives.
they're just using their phones too much.
They're using their phones too much, and they feel technology's influence on the world, and it scares them. And I understand, like, I am a tech optimist.
Like they just don't
I'm
have
a
friends
tech
anymore
lover.
because they're on their phone too often?
No, I don't think it's that. I think they feel disconnect. I think that our economic system and a lot of sort of social economic issues are very, very real. I think people are lonely. I think there are fewer and fewer third places. I think there's a lot of sort of structural problems in our society. And I think people are externalizing a lot of that shift onto technology. The media, I think, encourages this belief. And I think people blame the technology companies in a lot of instances where these are bigger sort of societal problems. And it's more of a symptom, right? You're on your phone all the time because you don't have a community, because you have to drive 30 minutes to go somewhere, right? It's hard for you to get out. Maybe you don't have that much expendable income.
Right. Well, I mean, the Andreessens of the world and sort of the, free market tech people love to point to a chart, which I think is compelling, that shows, TV prices plummeting and healthcare prices skyrocketing, basically with the idea that things that capitalists could influence, they really drove the prices down, and things they couldn't, they drove the prices up. And I think there's often this sort of argument that it's like we've been given, TVs basically and the phone to sort of salve the fact that we can't get the house we wanted. And I just don't know that that's the fault of technologists. Now, I get that some of these technologists are using the money they've made to sort of fend off the type of redistribution that might help someone get a house. I don't know if I totally buy that, but it's weird to blame the sort of tech for the broader ills.
I think tech can exacerbate these inequalities in society. I mean, look at like the rise of delivery apps, for instance. And
but are you on the side of it as a human right? Disabled people should be able to get delivery, or
actually,
you're on the
that's a good example. It is a human right for disabled people to have access to food, and unfortunately, because these systems of community care and these low cost delivery options for disabled people have been effectively driven out of business by much better platforms like Uber, right, that provide a better experience, that can get people, but the prices are very high. So now you have this very vulnerable population left to depend on these consumer apps, which are fundamentally not built for the purpose of serving a very marginalized, disabled population. What I would argue is let's build community delivery networks, right, where we have Meals on Wheels expanded, which is very hard to get, or we have sort of programs like this to make sure that these disabled people are not forced to rely on Uber and pay exorbitant prices and, suffer because of that. And also, let's look at the working conditions that these delivery apps are providing in a lot of ways. And I used to be a messenger, so, which was like gig work before, it was all sort of done by app. But like, I understand, how difficult it is. And you're sort of like, you're running around a lot. And also like, you don't know how much work you're going to get that day or tomorrow. It's very unstable. So I think it's amazing that these companies have provided a lot of economic opportunities for people that maybe want more flexible work environments. But I also think that there are a lot of people that are falling behind in the system, and they're rightfully angry. And it is easy to look at these big tech billionaires and get angry at them.
But DoorDash isn't killing the community that would have provided you
No, but
food,
I think that
right?
they are. No,
it's sort of you're not being bought into the community that then when you're struggling is sort of there for you, right?
I think it's a combination of things. One, I do think that DoorDash and Uber did sort of because they became such popular products, like you'll note that like a lot of grocery stores, even local grocery stores now, like these are better consumer products than a lot of the options before that were maybe more community focused. So in that sense, I don't think it was necessarily intentional, but they did sort of drive them out of business. And their goal is to drive competitors out of business, as any company would, right? They're going to compete with other sort of businesses. But I think people feel angry at these companies. These companies have not always been responsible. I'm not just talking about delivery companies, but all tech companies, right? There are the headlines. They have done irresponsible things. And I think people see these billionaires, and I think they see the irresponsible behavior from some of the companies, and they get very angry about it, right? And they look at what they have, and they look at their decline, the wealth inequality skyrocketing. They read these headlines about tech. They see the tech billionaires. I totally understand why they're angry at them, right?
I don't understand.
You don't?
I don't understand. I mean, we live in one of the best societies probably of all time in terms of life expectancy, quality of life, especially America. There are heat waves everywhere. We have air conditioning, and the people complaining are often heavy users of the products that they don't seem to appreciate.
But you yourself have that resentment. You earlier, just 5 minutes ago, were saying that you...
There are things about... Yeah, the sort of, I was complaining about red badges.
You feel...
But that's true of like any, like, a restaurant. I'm like, oh, the service should be XYZ. It's like, yeah, there are quibbles around the edges. I'm not saying don't have free thought, change from one company to the next. But ultimately, I just think the competition between businesses to pull one set of users to another is the most likely thing to solve.
Sure, but I think we need more competition. I think we have not had enough competition in areas of the tech ecosystem. I think that people generally, they see, it's interesting because I talk to a lot of people and I'll say, like, do you think we're better now than 10 years ago or 15 years ago? And they'll increasingly say no. And I would argue, like, the world... Technology is improving. We have cancer treatments right today that we didn't have 10 years ago, whatever. But I do think that there's a nostalgia and this feeling that life is declining and opportunities are declining and people feel hopeless, especially young people, and isolated and sad. And so,
my solution would be the Democratic Party should provide single-payer healthcare to everybody.
Well, that would be amazing.
That at least is a specific thing rather than spend a bunch of energy fighting data centers because we're angry.
Of course.
What is your view? Yeah. So the AI hate specifically, and I'm center left. You're, I guess, more sort of DSA world aligned. At least know Hassan and people like. What is your sense? Can we walk back from the anger around AI and data centers, or is the AOC wing, Mamdani wing of the party just going to be so anti-AI, anti-technology that it's going to be alienating to people like me?
Well, I think there's a few things there. One, the reason people are angry at data centers is because it's just a physical manifestation. And Mark Cuban did this tweet recently about this, and I thought
people got so mad at him. I agreed with him.
He was correct.
And Dario at Anthropic has basically said the same thing in an essay. Yes. So it's not like the AI industry necessarily disagrees with you. But so I buy that argument, though a lot of people say that's not what it's really about.
I mean, listen, I talked to there are many reasons to be against data centers. Would I want to live next door to a giant data center? Probably not. I'll be real, right? So I think people object to these data centers for legitimate reasons in their communities for whatever reason. Just the way that they would, reject a solar wind farm next to them or something, right? Like people, it is like NIMBYism, but it's also like there is real construction damage to the wells sometimes, right? That allows AOC to hold up a dirty water thing. So, and there's energy costs, right? We're a lot of these are gas powered.
A lot of farming is far worse.
Well, I'm vegan, so it makes me laugh when these people come out of the woodwork from, the leftist circles and they start talking about water usage. I'm like, let's talk about water usage, actually. Let's talk about factory farm. Like, you guys want to fix the water problem in America.
Because I brought this up because you brought the wells, and I think one of the key, I think it was Oregon or something, where I think Amazon maybe settled over a data center. And it's like, farms were doing a lot of the damage. And like
100%.
The data center was sort of like a tertiary, maybe they recycled some farm water. And so it wasn't just like, what about farms? It was like specifically these data centers get blamed for pollution that is far worse often from farming.
I mean, I would argue factory farming is obliterating our environment. And I have very, probably extremely anti sort of factory farming views. But But I think also, we're talking about also construction projects, right? That is inherently disruptive. What I'm saying is like there are legitimate reasons for people in various communities across the country to oppose data centers. That is not just because it's a manifestation of big tech. But most people in America do not live nearby a data center, actually. A lot of these data centers are in pretty remote places. So most of people, especially on the coasts and stuff in these major cities, their objection to data centers is just that they are this representation of big tech, and that they're this sort of like physical manifestation of big tech and AI and this AI future, which they're very resistant to. And so I think that is what's driving it. And if you're asking if the Democrats...
Are you sympathetic to them? And are the Democrats going to take up that anger?
I think the Democrats love it. They love it because they just released their Project 2029, which is very insane tech policy. Like, the Democrats have been so out to lunch on tech policy for so long. They're so uneducated on sort of tech generally, and I think they're willing to feed people slop about tech if it means rallying them up for their cause. And I think that's a mistake. I think it's very short-sighted because I think you are fundamentally feeding people into this sort of like reactionary movement that is anti-progress, and I think that that's bad. Now, that does not mean that I'm like pro data center, hyperscale, let's put Colossus data centers in everyone's backyard. No, that's very silly, right? But I think we need to have a smarter and more nuanced conversation than we're currently having. And part of the reason we can't have that conversation is because we have a lot of misinformation, a lot of and a lot of people just using it for political purposes.
I mean, the one thing that gives me hope is that AOC is so social media native. Like, there's no way in her heart of hearts she hates technology. I don't know.
I don't think it's about hating technology. I think that's a mistake.
But if you ban the data centers, then one day you just don't have.
But I don't think it's driven by hate.
You need the data centers to power the technology.
My favorite thing was I was on a call with a data center executive doing a press call recently, and he was like, when you take the data centers down and you can't have the hospitals or whatever. And it's like, sure, of course, data centers power a lot. I was laughing in my neighborhood group in Los Angeles. Somebody found out that there is a data center in downtown LA. Oh my God. And everyone's like, where? And, maybe this is why my dog is sick. And,
Well, LA is ground zero for
totally,
5G is going to melt my brain or whatever.
Absolutely. But I'm just saying, clearly it's hitting hard. This has become this very topical issue. It's a proxy for the AI wars. I think AOC rightly recognizes that this is something to tap into. And I'm not even against tapping into some of it. I just think it needs to be wielded in a productive way. And what is our ultimate goal? That's what I worry about. And a lot of these people, when you ask them what's the ultimate goal, ban AI, end AI, ban the data center moratorium, no AI, no future, no. And as somebody that not only loves technology, that's why I'm a tech reporter. I'm sorry to tell other leftists, but I do love technology. That is why
and you like AI, right?
Well, I think it
You're not going to get that quote out. What? Do you like AI?
You're not going to catch me in 4K. I love it. No, but I do think AI is useful. And I think if we refuse to acknowledge the benefits and utility of some of these AI tools and products and models, we can't ensure that they're equally distributed. And that's a huge mistake and a huge miss. And I think that, again, I think a lot of the discourse on this is just very short-sighted. And I think we should say, what do we want? Do we want a clean energy revolution? Is there a way to get these companies to pay for that? Pay for some of that? Can we regulate this in a smart way? Also...
Right. To the extent what we're doing is giving cities more negotiating leverage when they go up against an Amazon that comes to town and says that we'll pay you this much. And now we say, well, all our constituents are scared. Now we can extract a little bit more. Great. I'm fine with that. That's reasonable. But I just worry that sort of negotiating leverage is going to spill into something truly insane. Like Bernie Sanders is literally saying he wants a data center moratorium.
Bernie Sanders wants to nationalize AI or whatever the heck he was talking about. I mean, Bernie Sanders also interviewing Yudkowsky. I mean, what?
Interesting. You're like, he's out. It's over.
I can't, I think a lot of people on the left, again, they are not fundamentally engaged in these discussions on technology, and they don't care about tech policy. They like the anti-tech sentiment because it's something that they can wield and feed into this sort of populist revolution that's happening, which I generally like. I like the sort of populist sentiment that's coming out of the Democrats. In a lot of ways, I think it can be productive. I think there are these elites in the party, for lack of a better word, that have been basically telling the base to go screw themselves for a while, and they keep losing because of it. And I think it's great that they're being maybe more accountable to their political base.
Me as a New Yorker, Mamdani, it's amazing right now. I don't know if I don't agree with the rent freeze probably, but the idea that you need to govern effectively to prove that progressivism works is an amazing idea. And so if it's still worried about crime, still worried about potholes, and like running, if he wants a couple free grocery stores to run the experiment that I probably disagree with, I don't think it's gonna, ruin the city. So far,
I think it's amazing here in New York.
Right.
Like, I think he's done an excellent job. I think he's done a great job of coalition building.
And certainly as this sort of happy warrior leader figure, he's doing a great job representing
100%.
the city.
And crime is down. I think like these stats, I think he's done a really great job. I think the Democrats generally, I worry about this road that they're going down with the tech industry, and specifically the Project 2029 nonsense that they released recently, where they're like, we're gonna, dismantle Section 230 and ban social media for under 16. Like these laws where it's like, what does that do to get us closer to healthcare? What does that do to make sure that there's economic opportunity? What are we doing to facilitate, better public education in this country? Like, what is the answer to that? Because it seems like you're solving none of those problems. You're going to put a bunch of censorship and surveillance laws in place that are going to stifle innovation, that are going to hurt small businesses, that are going to hurt entrepreneurs and startups, and just individual like hackers and tinkerers. Like I love the like Linux developer community and the open source community because they've been so rightfully outraged at these like operating system level like identity verification things where it's like, do you even know how technology works? Like, I don't think you do, because you want to, they're telling these developers, like the Linux people, like, yeah, you have to like age verify like every use. And it's like, well, okay, so let's talk about like, again, just the fundamentals of technology. I think they think of technology as Facebook. And how can I seem tough on Mark Zuckerberg? Which is ironically not dismantling Section 230, but yeah.
Right. I had Ben Smith on my podcast, editor of Semaphore, and he basically made the argument that I guess is a little reassuring to the tech industry that AI, while people poll very negatively about it in the United States, is just like issue number like 23 on the list, and that no one is really going to vote on AI. And so even if AOC wins and she ran, and one of the things she said was anti-AI, like there's going to be so much tech money that says like, just don't make this your top thing and use capital on something else. Like, I don't know. Do you buy that sure, it just like people don't care enough and they care about other issues like healthcare or
I think people
the economy.
As they should, by the way, as they should. And of course, AI can exacerbate all that. Like what I worry about is, healthcare and AI and the ability to harvest massive amounts of data and use that to deny people healthcare, deny healthcare claims, which we already know that, these healthcare companies buy up data from data brokers and use that in
But the argument, is that insurance companies have been professionally denying claims, and it's often been hard for health systems to fight back. And now with AI, they can sort of navigate these complicated systems more easily. I mean, it's an arms race on both sides.
Yeah, I think, and fundamentally, I think the insurers have the upper hand because they're the ones denying coverage
they
to
already
sick
had
and
it,
dying people. Yeah, I think like what I worry about is like in the pursuit of quote unquote cracking down on AI or whatever. Again, we do things like remove anonymity from the internet, make it so that you have to upload your government passport and photo ID to look up something on Claude, and then of course that becomes part of your permanent browsing history that can then be used against you.
Do you agree we should have almost a constitutional level like attorney-client privilege with Claude? Like, it is insane to me. Like, first of all, the government has access to AI that they're going to use against me. So it's only making them more powerful.
Yeah.
But it's also treated like a therapist or a lawyer. I just think we should have a right to privacy that's pretty extreme.
We should have a right to privacy, and we should have a right to receive information. And there's a huge effort right now to restrict people's access to information and to censor the content that is coming out of this, these large language models. And I hate that. And I think it's incredibly dangerous. And I'm very against it.
I mean, it's amazing. I think part of it is Trump. Trump looms so large that stuff like anonymity on the internet would be major society-wide sort of policy debates that we've just like lost sight of in this culture. Like another related theme that's happening, which I don't know what I think about is sort of the flocks of the world, or just the idea for the police state to catch criminals very quickly. Like we just have like a surveillance net that's pretty effective at the moment.
I would argue it's not always effective. My question with the flock cameras is these were sold as license plate readers. They do a lot more than license plate reading. They are being used by cops sometimes to stalk people. They're being directed at bike paths, at children's playgrounds, at sports practices. Like, I think we are, again, constructing this mass surveillance state. And before we lean further into the surveillance superstructure or whatever that we're building, we should hear from some privacy advocates. Like, let's have some privacy, because I think privacy is this luxury. It's something that only, a vanishingly sort of smaller and smaller amount of people have access to. And privacy is so important, and I think that we deserve that.
I just don't know that I think it's realistic. Like, to me, I'm like, privacy's sort of lost. Like, the surveillance state exists.
You are then why don't you live in communist China? Why don't you go live in communist China?
We have democracy, right? I'm saying the answer is to enshrine
these people.
Rules, give us our defense, not say tear down that camera. Like, I'm a private person. I have cameras outside my home. You have no idea how much worse it could get. You have no idea. You are delusional. People, I hate this argument so much. People, oh my God, we already live in an authoritarian surveillance state. No, I'm not saying we live in authoritarian. I'm saying we live in, there are cameras everywhere, and the government is quickly figuring out how to organize them.
You don't even know how bad it could get. I really encourage you to look at what it's like in places like China. Look at what it's like in some of these other countries.
One answer we could have...
That democracy is not going to stop us from building that.
Well, we could have
hurtling towards that.
Right, I agree with you in terms of the capability. But I'm saying an alternative...
And how it's used.
An alternative is to have a law that says the police can activate all these cameras for, like, murder, this, and not for, like, petty theft.
Here's the thing. This is my point.
You could just, through law, sort of divide access to...
and what I'm advocating for... are those laws? Are those privacy laws?
But you're not saying, what are you saying? Tear down the cameras?
Well, I'm saying, unfortunately, I don't know that it's going to be. I don't know that they're going to. Again, once you lose a right, it's really hard to get it back. I don't know that we are going to get. I would love to see. Listen, if people want to go tear down the cameras, I'm not going to be mad about that. But what I would say is, before we build those cameras, let's talk about. What do they have the right? Where can you put them? What can they be used for legally?
Right, I agree with all this.
And why are we building them? And also, if we're going to spend so much money building this surveillance state, is that the most effective tool? And how can we protect democracy?
I don't understand Democrats or like being opposed to like the gunshot detectors. Like that makes so much sense. Do you object to sort of the police departments putting up like
what are the gunshot detectors?
They're all, I forget what company does them, but they're huge police departments where they can sort of hear where a gunshot went off to like immediately send cops and say, oh, it was like this block. I do think that's a big part of the. Yeah.
Oh my God,
it might be a Flock product. I'm not sure, but yeah, it's a big part of the police state.
I'm not a Flock fan. Well, listen, I think that again, let's get some privacy laws in place. Let's make sure we protect people's civil liberties. I think that these surveillance tech companies are having a field day. I think they're building out this stuff. They're making a zillion dollars, and I think that we don't have the right protections in place online or offline to protect against this system that we're building. We see Donald Trump already weaponizing, this surveillance system against immigrants. So
nothing has made me more small government than watching, ICE and Trump and realizing, oh man, you're going to give the keys to some of the worst people in the world.
Absolutely. And so let's restrict the government's power. Let's have a lot more oversight. Let's enshrine people's right to privacy and all of this stuff and really be thoughtful before we enact this sort of surveillance stuff. And I think that's something that, by the way, like everyone should agree on. Like this should not be a controversial position. I don't think that, it's frustrating. I think that a lot of these topics get so politicized.
But are there politicians that represent this view? I mean, what is like the
Ron
Rand
Wyden,
Pauls? Or,
Rand Paul and Ron Wyden, I would say. Wyden has been phenomenal on privacy rights and also has a great law called the Jawbone Act, where he's trying to make it illegal for and adding transparency to the process of these big tech companies being forced to bow to government pressure. You'd think that these tech companies should get on board with a law like that. They
whined about it so much during the Biden administration.
I know, but listen, like everyone should just everyone, Democrat and Republican, each one of them, they constantly want laws where they sort of just they want to imagine a world where they're in power and they can use these laws against their enemies, and their enenemies are never going to get power and it's just like, guys, again, Biden was president 4 years ago. Who knows who's going to be president in 4 years? We should have laws where even if your worst enemy, sort of the person you hate the most, has the power in government, that you will be protected. If that makes sense.
Hard to disagree with that. I want to talk about the media and the influencer ecosystem today. I mean, we both come up through journalism. I climbed the sort of old school ladder, like Macon Telegraph, Sun Sentinel, Tampa Bay Times, like very.
Where did the Tampa Bay Times?
Yeah, just all summer internships. I did, and then the New York Times. I did like the classic, do the summer internship ladder. I was from the South, so then it was all the Florida papers were very good. So anyway, what I'm about to say comes from the privilege of being deep in the journalism world and understood to be a journalist. But I often say that I'd rather be a creator that exceeds expectations than a journalist that disappoints them. I do think there's been this weird paradigm where journalists get dunked on for like every little failing and creators are held to absolutely like no standard. Do you think that's still the dynamic today, or you think people, the sort of online, again, this imagined sort of like YouTube information environment, TikTok news consumer, like, do you think they're sort of starting to understand, creators have shortcomings too, and there was some value in the journalists? Or what do you see as sort of the sentiment right now?
I want to believe that they're going to see value in us again.
Well, there's just so many creators that have just been like, I don't know, so so I mean, you've written about,
I know. They're all taking dark money.
Yeah, the Democrats, funding creators. Why is that so bad?
Well, what I've also written about is like leading the future and the the AI safety, like, it's like all these people are so angry that leading the future is funding, all these influencer things. Well, now the Transform had a great story just recently about the AI safety movement and the stuff that they're funding. So
people say AI is good, people say AI is bad. They're all on the take.
They're all taking money. And let me tell you, we're not taking money. We are not taking money.
I host an AI conference, though, which has its own sponsors, but I am not being paid to say anything.
I am also not being paid to say anything. But it's frustrating, right? Because I think to make these distinctions is really hard to consumers who sort of they're just there for the entertainment. They're just there to kind of consume information. I think it's really good to educate people. So I just try to talk about it a lot and say, like, by the way, guys, I don't take so when you see me asking for a subscription, like, give it to me and not some person that, by the way, has like some 6-figure check from the Democrats as well. Is
the subscription the main way you make money?
Yeah, subscriptions. So if you like my work, usermag.co. But yeah, I don't know.
I'm a paying subscriber.
Thank you. But I think, I think that like, hopefully we're seeing a little bit of a boomerang back. I think that it got so craven and so ridiculous that people have begun to be like, okay, I want like trusted information and can I trust this person? But I also think that might just be the case of sort of like a small sort of like elite group of people that really want that high quality information. I would say most Americans, I mean, they don't even know the name of like they just sort of.
You use the word journalist to describe yourself mostly? Or?
Yeah. I mean, I would say I'm a reporter. I had the opposite way of getting into media because I started as a blogger back in 2009, how old I am. And there was all these discussions like, are bloggers journalists? Like bloggers are and you would go on blogger trips and it was like a blogger,
I know. I worried I'd miss the real cool thing in journalism at the moment. So I had to get on Substack and we collided.
Yeah.
And,
But when I was a blogger, like I remember people in the journalism world were like, oh, you can't call yourself a journalist, And then when I started to work in traditional media, really through through Business Insider and digital media, which was sort of the only on-ramp at the time because you couldn't really monetize very well as a blogger. Then I was like, okay, my job title is reporter, right? Like, and I learned.
You were out scooping everybody at the time.
Back in the day. But also like, you learn about journalistic ethics, right? And you learn like asking for comment, following, these certain practices. And I think a lot of people online in the content creator ecosystem, they don't follow those practices. And I think their content is worse for, it's like,
What's funny to me, all the startups complained about journalists forever, and now they have to deal with creators where they just
who are so high
say whatever, they'll shit on somebody without even asking if something's true. Yeah. Just shoot first, ask questions later, and it's like, oh yeah, the devil versus the devil you don't.
Also, they often ask for money. Like right. I hear that from companies a lot where they're like, they want to do an interview. And especially because I have my own like YouTube and stuff, and they'll be like, and just to be clear, we don't have to pay you, right? And I'm like, no, that would be hugely unethical. Are you paying people? No, yeah, I had to pay,
I know this undisclosed influence or undisclosed sponsor. You think
I think
rampant.
It's a huge problem. I think a lot of podcasters out there are taking money in exchange for booking, and they're not disclosing it, and there's just a lot of undisclosed ads going around.
Oh, what are we going to do about it? Or like, how is it? It's illegal, right? Like you have to disclose, isn't it? Or am I naive?
Oh
I thought
God.
it was against the law.
Bear,
like,
it's not real.
Wasn't there the whole period? Didn't Kim Kardashian get in trouble with like the FTC
so
for this?
you know what's so funny? I wrote about this in my book, Extremely Online, which I
Wow,
came
we're
out a
just
couple
now
years.
we're deep enough in the show that you're
Now
like,
I am
all
in the
right, if you're
influencer
still
mindset."
here, you need to buy some of my shit.
No. I just note that because I actually reported extensively on this for that, where I wrote about this moment in 2017 when the FTC was like, hey, like, if somebody pays you directly in exchange, like, I am giving you money to say this online, like, so direct, you have to disclose that. And so all these influencers started disclosing it, and people were all these stupid think pieces, like, it's the end of the influencer era. Oh, the influencers are going to disclose. They're going to lose all their influence. What it did is it overnight turned branded content into aspirational. So suddenly they started to see how many brand deals their favorite influencers were getting, and that became this new aspirational
Right, but that was
thing.
at least okay. It was disclosed.
So anyway, what that did is it led to the rise of fake sponsored content where people will often make things appear as if they did a partnership when they didn't. And also, I think it led the companies to kind of innovate around it, where now they'll be like, well, we're paying you a booking fee. We're not paying for you to say something necessarily. We're just paying you to host this person's idea. We're just paying for that. And so they don't. So anyway, they avoid disclosure rules.
Who should the Democrats court in terms of online influencers?
Aside from us.
No, I mean, I don't mean to fixate. I'm just so worried.
The Democrats hate me, so they're not coming to my door anytime soon.
Well, we had the Ezra Klein. Do they?
Oh, they don't fuck with me at all.
The Ezra Klein, don't take down Hassan. Like, I don't know. What's your read on?
Well, Ezra's smart to say that, because Hassan has a very dedicated, Hassan is incredibly powerful. And I think I think the Democratic Party is going through this sort of Tea Party moment. And I think it's this populist revolution. And I think for Ezra, who's such a voice of the establishment, to come out against the main figure, that would just make him seem out of touch and stupid. So
it's so funny that all these online commentators have built up Ezra as this terrible, but he's a liberal person.
Guy.
He's pretty left of certainly most of the country.
I know.
But I'm sympathetic on we shouldn't run around canceling every leftist influencer, certainly as a party.
No. I mean, I think that there's. No, absolutely not. And I think that the moral panic around Hassan is ridiculous. It's absurd. I think he's built a powerful audience, and he speaks about real issues that people care about. And I think he is very good at giving voice to, again, this sentiment that we're talking about, that is leading to the anger about data centers, that's leading to the anger about big tech. There is this anger among the population.
Is he intellectually honest about the data? I haven't watched enough Hassan to know how he treats
He doesn't cover tech policy very much, but he has defended Section 230, and I think he's very privacy focused. I think he's also, as a member of the left, dealt with censorship and spoken about censorship, which is more than I can say of 99% of content creators on the left. They generally do not speak about censorship. They have more recently.
You broke a story about
in the context
him getting interviewed
Palestine.
when he came back to the country or something, didn't you?
Oh yeah, he was targeted by the government, put him through. So I think a lot of leftists understand speech, sort of speech restrictions through the lens of they see it happening with Palestine. That was this thing that sort of woke them up, where they're like, oh, wait a minute, maybe censorship is bad, and it's yes, now apply that to everything, right? But you also need to be intellectually honest and defend the speech of people you disagree with, and defend the speech that you might find abhorrent.
Were you must have been shouting during the pandemic that COVID deniers shouldn't be allowed to run around on social media platforms, or where were you on that issue at the time?
I have a very nuanced view of that. Obviously, I'm immunocompromised. I have my mask on right now. I think that unfortunately what happened during the earliest days of the pandemic is that there was a lot of censorship around people that were diverging from maybe institutional scientific beliefs around certain things. And I think that we were in this period where everything was evolving so rapidly, and there was misinformation coming from the government itself, and I think, again, a lot of liberals understand this with Trump, right? They were like, oh, Trump said to drink bleach or whatever, whatever. They,
right. We're not oh, that should be the policy of Facebook now, that you can only say that.
So it's they understand that maybe Trump or RFK might give misinformation. But what I would say to them is Joe Biden and Anthony Fauci also said some things that were ultimately sort of maybe untrue. Okay. And that does not, I'm not saying oh, don't listen to the medical experts. I think that a huge problem right now in America is that people are not listening to medical experts, and they're sort of listening to these wellness influencers online that are selling them a grift. But I think that we should be able to have these conversations in public. I think that we should be able
I think my view at the time,
to
right,
speak,
if I look back, maybe was just that you obviously could write a thoughtful piece saying it leaked out of a lab. Like, I listened to like Steve Bannon and Tom Cotton on a podcast at peak censorship talking about this. And I found it on Twitter, and you could share that.
But
what you couldn't do was be sort of like the rabble just being like China virus. And sure, maybe it was wrong to censor those people, but like, how much does all the dumb content matter? Like all this sort of like just shouting attitudes rather than an actual argument. Like nobody is really censoring the full argument. It was about the like short, dumb takes.
Eric, people were censoring art. Like, and I would say you're right. Twitter, not so much although Twitter, I wrote a story for the Washington Post. People can go back and read. Twitter actually censored a lot of scientists, and under Joe Biden, actually, they were censoring scientists, public health experts, academics, and disabled people who were saying, hey, Joe Biden, the vaccines are actually not fully sterilizing, so you should still take extra precautions. And actually, the pandemic is not magically over. Joe Biden is not. So they were trying to raise alarm about the long-term implications of COVID. They had their accounts deleted, content removed, etc. So a huge amount of people that have tried to mitigate disease have been censored. Also, what I would say to you, Eric.
Mostly Facebook, you're saying.
No. That was happening on Twitter. That was Twitter that did that. Meta is a whole other story.
Meta just loves whoever's in power at the moment.
Meta will censor, and they're like, Joe Biden wants this. That's what we're doing. Mark Zuckerberg. So, and I think this is the whole problem, right? And this is why we need to protect free speech online, and I will always fight for free speech of anyone, even people I vehemently disagree with, because otherwise we have these major tech platforms that are effectively just moderating in any way that they feel like will give them a friendly regulatory environment. And they have no commitment to free speech or free discussion of ideas. And these are the de facto sort of public squares, right? And we need to be able to debate ideas. And it's also, it's dangerous to have the government deputizing these big tech platforms effectively as government censors.
And this was your stance during the pandemic?
The pandemic, I would say, is ongoing. But yes, this has always been. And by the way, you can, if you don't believe, go look at my, coverage. Like the one thing that I have always been involved in and like been in like libertarian circles on and stuff is like civil liberties and speech rights. I'm a journalist. I care about these things because I was a blogger, and I care about being able to speak and publish. And I think everyone should have the right to self-publish, and the right to voice their opinions. That doesn't mean necessarily that I agree with them or I think that they should be platformed, artificially by these things. But I do think that we need, I would defend people that were anti-lockdown. I would defend their right to speak, even to this day. I defend people's rights all the time that I disagree with. I'm obviously an extremely cautious person about COVID. Again, I am immunocompromised. I don't agree with a lot of these people, but I think that if we ban everyone whose ideas we don't like, we go down a very slippery slope.
Going back to this journalism versus creator distinction, I mean, one contradiction a viewer might see is that we both like express like political sympathies on the show. Like, what's your view on sort of opinion in journalism?
I think personally, again, I come from this like blogger mindset where I never came up through institutional media. And when I got into these old school institutions, it was very clear that all of that political ideology drives editorial coverage.
It just allows sort of moderates to win by having sort of view from nowhere reporting.
Well, also, like, how is the moderate view the neutral? So you're a moderate Democrat, and that is the main sort of political ideology reflected in the mainstream media. But to act like political agendas or ideologies and belief systems don't drive, news coverage is very silly, not just from headline choices, but I've worked on stories where we're actively trying to get laws changed, right? Sometimes gun laws, sometimes other laws, right?
Right. To win a Pulitzer, you want a policy to change.
Yes, it's like a win when you get a law overturned or something, right? So to act like that's not political or something is very silly. And I think it's just like all of these liberal media institutions have really been exposed as, sort of, I wouldn't say like it's not like fraud, but it's ridiculous, right? To say that like, oh, well, we don't have any, you can't say political opinions, but you can say certain political opinions, but you can't say these political opinions.
I agree with you mostly. I want to be able to, part of the reason I left Bloomberg was to be able to get rid of view from nowhere and have my own perspective. And I think that's what the reader generally wants. I still think there's value in these newsrooms that try to discourage people from, certainly the AP. I don't think you'd want the AP, the Associated Press, to abandon.
No, not their. But what I would say is when you look at my reporting, I would say, is fair and accurate. And that is my goal. It is not necessarily to be neutral. It's to be fair and accurate. And I love reading the AP, and I think they do a really good job of being fair and accurate and whatever. But I think it's also honest. I try to be honest with my audience and say, here's my belief. And by the way, I was trying to write a story recently about Zionists being the government was trying to encourage their accounts to be deleted on Twitter because they were speaking about Iran or something. I don't agree with these people on almost anything, certainly not on foreign policy, right? I'm very critical of Israel, but I would defend their, and I would do that story. I'm constantly writing stories that I don't agree with everyone involved.
And I just think it's much more interesting and compelling to the reader to understand why you're interested in the story and to get the plain English explanation than rather than some sort of, you're almost hiding, leading them to something rather than saying directly. I think it's interesting because I believe in free speech, and this is an issue that would push me to, stand for free speech, even if it's against a crowd that normally I
I'm
disagree
interested
with.
in covering the Democrats because, XYZ. I used to be I used to have affinity for their party, and now, I want to report on them.
Do you think the New York Times is a great American institution?
What does that even mean?
I think it's one of the most important institutions in America, certainly today. For all the criticism, the most I get canceled online is defending the New York Times.
Oh God! You're trying to get that contributor job.
No, I'm not. I have no. I was going to ask, do you think you'll ever be back in mainstream media?
I freelance for mainstream media all the time. I'm happy to go there. I'm happy to, if they want to, I freelance in mainstream media. I'm not destroy the mainstream media. I think it's actually a really valuable. I think that the business model of mainstream media, for all its flaws, still supports journalism to an extent. And I think if we completely obliterate the mainstream media, there's a lot of journalists that...
I think a lot of people in our culture broadly, both the sort of online people I'm complaining about and the business community, just far underrate how much information would not become public without dogged reporting. Facts don't just come online. I feel like we have this culture where once something's been reported, everybody just takes for granted.
They see it on the Polymarket Twitter and they think it just fell out of the sky.
It's just we were owed this. I don't know. You're probably on the other side of this, but I get annoyed when people are so mad at Maggie Haberman for getting information for a book.
Oh, absolutely.
You agree with me, or you are?
I agree with you completely.
Yeah, because it's she had to get that information. Anyone else in the world could have gotten this information. And as you well know, there are people who cooperate for a book that wouldn't cooperate for something else.
So but that's ridiculous. Though I don't even take those people seriously because
it's a very common view. I think people are obsessed with this idea of the New York Times holding back facts for books.
Yeah, the New York Times, let me tell you, they're not holding back facts. They would love to publish it. They love it. I've worked there. They would love to, I promise you. They're biased
towards scoops.
My editor would have been so pissed if I was I secretly held this information for what? No one's doing that. It is very different getting people to talk to you for a book versus not. It's very silly. The New York Times has a lot of flaws. I love their tech coverage. I'm sorry. I know the tech people, for whatever reason, they have this, bee in a bonnet about that. I think they do a good job. I do.
I don't know how I'd sum up their tech coverage right now.
I think they feed a little moral panic nonsense, honestly. But I think overall they do a pretty good job. And I think the reporters there are talented. I think there are...
They just lost Casey Newton and Kevin. Well, their podcast, Hard Fork.
The podcast has gone independent.
Their podcasters are leaving. Kevin Roos, I guess, was the columnist. Casey was independent.
Mike Isaac, one of the best iconic tech reporters of all time. There are so many talented people at the New York Times, and they do really great tech journalism. And I think, they also have interesting people like Jasmine Sun, wrote that piece actually for the opinion section that I thought was really good. So I think they do good tech coverage.
We were talking about who's sort of off camera, who's up and coming right now. She's one that I think is doing
Jasmine.
A good job.
She's so talented.
Yeah.
And I think she's able to write about tech in an interesting way that doesn't feel dogmatic and doesn't feel anti-tech, but also doesn't feel like boosterism. And I think that's just an incredible skill. I think she's a curious person that has nuanced thoughts and is, so I love her coverage. And I think that's what was kind of making people mad, where they were you wrote a mean thing about Clubhouse. You hate, whatever. And it's like, no, I actually like love technology. I actually I'm a tech reporter because of that, right? But
I just reject these tribes.
Yes.
It's like I guess you're always on my mind. But one reason you got back on my mind was your conversation with Balaji Srinivasan on.
Speaking of someone that's obsessed with the New York Times,
right? Exactly, monitoring the situation. It was so funny. One thing that stood out to me, I was probably one of 10 people who watched that conversation.
They hit double digits watch time.
I scrubbed through it. I can't claim to watch every second of it, but he was almost sad and wistful that he wasn't fighting with journalists anymore.
It
but
was
it's
sad. It
he
was pitiful.
opted out of it. He's such.
Well, what was so funny? What a loudmouth online. All these VCs love to especially when I worked at the New York Times, they were always really yelling at me for some reason. And it's they never really knew why they were mad at me either. As Kara Swisher said about that time, she was like, if there's any tech journalist to pick a fight with, why are you yelling at Taylor when she's not even covering, I cover tech from the user side. I'm not
You're
even
excited often about new consumer ideas.
Yeah, I'm not covering venture capital in any way. So I'm who are these people even? But yeah, Balaji is sort of has this chip on his shoulder. And what I would say is listen, is the New York Times perfect? No institution is. But there's a lot of people doing a lot of really incredible journalism. And I think you can hate their foreign policy coverage for some reason. You can hate whatever. But they really, I will say the tech editors there are phenomenal.
But he's obsessed with tribes, which is part of why I brought him up. If I had to distill, I think
he's in a tribe.
Right, exactly. I think he calls it the gray tribe or something. It's there's the tech, there's New York Times CCP. I forget what there is a third one.
What?
You've seen this? Are you kidding me?
No, I've
There's
seen
sort of the network state.
The network
There's
state,
command and control.
My favorite
and there
was
must be is there another right wing one? I forget what the third.
Didn't he have everyone living in some apartment complex in Singapore where he was trying to do the network state,
right,
and everyone got mold poisoning?
Again, I'm happy people try to run these experiments. Nobody seems to want to move to these communities.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do worry that one of the problems, I guess our last topic, and I'll let you go. Just the audience capture issue to me fits into the same tribe dynamic. As a, I'm of Substack. Substack, I get it. I have my audience, I understand it. Conferences, I understand it. YouTube, I'm pretty openly who are these people watching this video right now? Are you, and I just feel YouTubers crave tribe so much.
Yes.
And they want
yes.
so much of YouTube is built around here's a thing that will make you angry, watch it and we'll validate it. I'm amazed how many videos can people watch being AI sucks. Even if that's your belief, how many times are you gonna watch that fucking video?
A million times. Let me tell you,
what's going on? And so what's your view of the audience and then what it does to the creator?
I think on YouTube especially, you are so incentivized to be extreme and to kind of feed and this is actually, I think, just a big problem as a creator too, right? Because TikTok incentivizes it. I think YouTube does it to an extreme, but it's so hard to have nuance, and especially if you're a journalist where you're constantly telling people things they actually often don't want to hear. I feel I'm constantly hey, you're kind of wrong. It's actually not like this. It's actually a lot more nuanced than you think, and blah, blah, blah. And that is so much less popular every single time than bomb the data centers, right?
I'm really proud to be able to build a brand on, it's this story you heard that's sort of neat and easy. It's actually not as neat and easy as you thought.
But you have to say it's not as neat and easy as you thought in a way that validates your pre-existing beliefs.
Right. It feeds into some, you have to know where their head is at and successfully bring them to where you're going. But that's all good writing and communicating. You do have to have a sense of whoever your audience, where their heads are at to bring them somewhere. And I guess part of what I'm saying about YouTube is where I can't claim to be in touch with where their heads are at.
You're getting there. It takes a while. YouTube, it takes a while. It's a slow burn platform. It's not like TikTok where you although they're sort of becoming more and more fast twitch, sort of responsive. You'll note that the lifetime for a lot of videos is shorter than it used to be. And there's all this sort of gamified,
But do you feel pressure? Are you captured, or where is your audience pushing you?
I've really struggled in this, I think, again, because I have a lot of nuanced takes and a lot of takes, especially about technology and speech and beliefs that are maybe not aligned with the leftist audience that I have. And I'm a very progressive person. I believe in equal rights. I believe in trans rights. I believe in all of these things. But I also believe in like free speech and privacy in like a very libertarian way. And I, I'm not like gonna burn down the data centers. I think maybe we need some data centers, and like maybe like AI is not like the worst thing, that's ever been invented. Like we can use it for some things. And I don't think that makes you evil if you like to use Claude Code, right? Like, and I think it's difficult. And I think when I went independent, and I was talking about this recently, like, and I mentioned to you previously, like I collaborated with a lot of leftist influencers, and a lot of these people are my friends personally. I have friends all over the political spectrum, truly. And I was so happy, right, to like collaborate with, or collaborate is such a stupid word and very like like we're collaborate. They view it as like
collab. Like,
they view it.
That's what we're doing right now.
They were canceling one of these leftist influencers who I literally went on their show, like I don't know, whatever. It's like I'm a guest on their podcast or something, and they're like, "You collaborated with her," and I'm like, I guess I went on to talk about KOSA. Like I don't anyway, but yeah, it's like
so
everyone.
You built a lot of your audience.
So I
with
built an
this
audience, and I
left-wing,
think I'm trying to kind of find people now that are willing to hear a little bit more nuance, that are willing to be less dogmatic, and also like you can criticize the Republicans and the Democrats, and you can criticize tech companies, but also enjoy technology products, and like just have that kind of more nuanced take, because I think hopefully there's other people like that out there. Like I don't want to live in this world where it's so reactive and so negative, and so like, because I could just make anti-data center videos all day and do very well. Like that is so financially profitable. And I could make pro AI slop and probably get a Leading the Future check or something, right? Like
But integrity is priceless.
And it's also like, what's the point of doing journalism? Like what's the point of being a journalist if you're not going to sort of, live by those standards, I guess. And so I don't know. I'm trying to evolve the audience and also get them on board and just be like, again, like
bring them with you. Yeah.
Let's like, yeah, because I want them to come on board, and I want us all to build a better future. And what I care about the most is building a better internet and building a better technology landscape. And I think the left has been totally checked out. They have literally checked out of tech policy for like 10 years. And now they're getting involved because they're paying attention to AI. And so I like that. I want to like harness that attention and bring it to a productive place.
Taylor Lorenz, great to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. That's our show. I'm Eric Newcomer. Thanks for listening. Please like, comment, subscribe. Check out the Substack at newcomer.co. Thank you for all your support. We'll see you next week.